Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to our reading of Star Wars. The Empire Strikes Back, Chapter 3. It's been 6 months. No, longer than that. 6, 7, 8 months since I read Star Wars. What is wrong with me? But we are going to read Chapter 3 in The Empire Strikes Back. If I can find it. Here it is. And here we go. Chapter 3 of The Empire Strikes Back. R2-D2 stood just outside the entrance to the secret Rebel ice hangar, dusted with a layer of snow that had settled over his plug-shaped body. His inner timing mechanisms knew he had waited here a long time, and his optical sensors told him that the sky was dark. But the R2 unit was concerned only with its built-in probe sensors that were still sending signals across the ice fields. His long and earnest sensor search for the missing Luke Skywalker and Han Solo had not turned up a thing. The stout droid began beeping nervously when 3PO approached him, plodding stiffly through the snow. R2, there's nothing more you can do. You must come inside. 3PO straightened to his full height again, simulating a human shiver as the night winds howled past his gleaming hull. R2, my joints are freezing up. Will you hurry, please? But before he could finish his own sentence, 3PO was hurrying back toward the hangar entrance. Hoth's sky was then entirely black with night, and Princess Leia Organa stood inside the rebel base entrance, maintaining a worried vigil. She shivered in the night wind as she tried to see into the Hoth darkness. Waiting near a deeply concerned Major Durlin, her mind was somewhere out on the ice fields. The giant Wookiee sat nearby, his maned head lifting quickly from his hairy hands as the two droids, 3PO and R2, re-entered the hangar. 3PO was humanly distraught. R2 has not picked, but R2 has not been able to pick up any signals, he reported, fretting. Although he feels his range is probably too limited to cause us to give up hope. Still, very little confidence could be detected in 3PO's artificial voice. Leia gave the taller droid a nod of acknowledgement, but did not speak. Her thoughts were occupied with the pair of missing heroes. Most disturbing to her was that she found her mind focused on one of the two, a dark-haired Corellian whose words were not always to be taken literally. As the princess kept watch, Major Durlin turned to acknowledge the rebel lieutenant reporting in. All patrols are now in except Solo and Skywalker, sir. The major looked over at Princess Leia. Your Highness, there's nothing more we can be done tonight. The temperature's dropping too fast. The shield doors must be closed. I'm sorry. Durlin waited a moment, then addressed the lieutenant. Close the doors. Yes, sir. The rebel officer turned to carry out Durlin's order, and immediately the chamber of ice seemed to drop even more in temperature as a mournful Wookiee howled his grief. The speeder should be ready in the morning, the major said to Leia. They'll make the search easier. Not really expecting an affirmative reply, Leia asked, Is there any chance of their surviving until morning? Slim, Major Durlin answered with grim honesty. But yes, there is a chance. In response to the Major's words, R2 began to operate the miniature computers inside his barrel-like metal body, taking only moments to juggle numerous sets of mathematical computations and climaxing his figurines with a series of triumphant beeps. Ma'am, R2-3PO, 3PO interjected. R2 says the chances against survival are 725 to 1. Then, tilting toward the shoulder robot, the protocol droid grumbled, Actually, I don't think we needed to know that. No one responded to 3PO's translation. For several prolonged moments, there was solemn silence broken only by the echoing clang of metal slamming against metal. The huge doors of the rebel base were closed for the night. It was as if some heartless deity had officially severed the assembled group from the two men out in the icy plains and had, with a metallic bang, announced their deaths. Chewbacca let out another suffering howl, and a silent prayer, often spoken in the erstwhile world called Alderaan, crept into Leia's thoughts. The sun that was creeping over Hoth's northern horizon was relatively dim, but its light was enough to shed some warmth on the planet's icy surface. The light crawled across the rolling hills of snow, fought to reach the darker recesses of the icy gorges, then finally came to rest on what must have been the only perfect white mound on the entire world. So perfect was the new snow-covered mound that it must have owed its existence to some power other than nature. Then, as the sky grew steadily brighter, this mound began to hum. Anyone observing the mound now would have been startled as the snow dome seemed to erupt, sending its snowy outer covering skyward in a great burst of white particles. A droning machine began pulling back its retractable sensor arms, and its awesome bulk slowly rose from its frozen white bed. A probe robot paused briefly in the windy air, then continued on its morning mission across the snow-covered plains. Something else had invaded the morning air of the ice world. A relatively small, snub-nosed craft with dark cockpit windows and laser guns mounted to each side. The rebel snowspeeder was heavily armored and designed for warfare near the planet's surface. But this morning, the small craft was on a reconnaissance mission, racing above the expansive white landscape and arcing over the contours of the snowdrifts. Although the snowspeeder was designed for a two-man crew, Zev was the ship's only occupant. His eyes took an panoramic scan of the desolate stretches below, and he prayed that he would find the objects of his search before he went snowblind. Presently, he heard a low beeping signal. Echo Base, I've got something. It's not much, but it could be a life sign. Sector 4614 by 882. Closing in. Frantically working the controls of his ship, Zev reduced its speed slightly and banked the craft over snowdrift. He welcomed the sudden G-force pressing him against his seat and headed the snowspeeder in the direction of the faint signal. As the white infinity of Hoth's terrain streaked under him, the rebel pilot switched his comlink to a new frequency. Echo 3, this is Rogue 2. Do you copy? Commander Skywalker, this is Rogue 2. The only reply that came through his comlink receiver was static. Then he heard a voice, a very distant-sounding voice, fighting its way through the crackling noise. Nice of you guys to drop by. Hope we didn't get you up too early. Zev welcomed the charismatic cynicism of Han Solo's voice. He switched his transmitter back to the hidden rebel base. Echo Base, this is Rogue 2. I found them. Repeat, I found them. As he spoke, the pilot pulled in a fine-tuned fix on the signals, rinking on his cockpit monitor screens. Then he further reduced the speed of his craft, bringing it down close enough to the planet's surface so that he could better see a small object standing out against the fleecy plains. The object, a portable rebel-issued shelter, sat atop a snowdrift. On the shelter's windward side was a hard-packed layer of white, and resting gingerly across the upper part of the snowdrift was a makeshift radio antenna. But a more welcome sight than any of this was the familiar human figure standing in front of the snow shelter, frantically waving his arms at the snowspeeder. As Zeb dipped his craft for landing, he felt overwhelmingly grateful for it that at least one of the warriors he had set out to find was still alive. Only a thick glass window separated the battered, near-frozen body of Luke Skywalker from five of his watchful friends. Han Solo, who appreciated the relative warmth of the rebel Medical Center was standing beside Leia, his Wookiee pilot, R2-D2 and C-3PO. Han exhaled with relief. He knew that despite the grim atmosphere of the chamber enclosing him, the young commander was finally out of danger and in the best mechanical hands. Clad only in white shorts, Luke hung in a vertical position inside a transparent cylinder with a combination breath mask and microphone covering his nose and mouth. The surgeon droid, 2-1B, was attending to the youth with the skill of the finest humanoid doctors. He was aided by his medical assistant droid FX-7, which looked like nothing more than a metal-capped set of cylinders, wires, and appendages. Gracefully, the surgeon droid worked a switch that brought a gelatinous red fluid pouring down over his patient, a human patient. This Bacta, Han knew, could work miracles, even with patients in such dire shape as Luke. And as a bubbling slime encapsulated his body, Luke began to thrash about and raved deliriously. Watch out, he moaned. Snow creatures. Dangerous. Yoda. Go to Yoda. Only hope. Han had not the slightest idea what his friend was raving about. Chewbacca, also perplexed by the youth's babbling, expressed himself with an interrogative Wookiee bark. It doesn't make sense to me either, Chewie. I do hope he's all there, if you take my meaning. It would be most unfortunate if Master Luke were to develop a short circuit. The kid ran into something, and it wasn't just the cold. Han observed matter-of-factly. It's those creatures he keeps talking about. Leia said, We've dealt with the security, Han. We don't know how to forget it, he said brusquely. Right now he was concerned only with his friend in the red bacta fluid. Luke's body sloshed through the brightly colored substance, the bacta's healing properties by now taking effect. For a while it appeared as if Luke was trying to resist the curative flow of the translucent muck. Then, at last, he gave up his mumbling and relaxed, succumbing to the bacta's powers. 2-1B turned away from the human who had been entrusted to his care. He angled his skull-shaped head to gaze at Han and the others through the window. Commander Skywalker has been in normal shock, but is responding well to the Bacta. Bacta, the robot announced, his commanding authoritative voice heard distinctly through the glass. He is now out of danger. The surgeon robot's words immediately wiped away the tension that had eased the group on the other side of the window. Leia sighed in relief, and Chewbacca grunted his approval of 2-1B's treatment. Luke had no way of estimating how long he had been delirious, but now he was in full command of his mind and senses. He sat up in his bed in the Rebel Medical Center. What a relief, he thought, to be breathing real air again, however cold it might be. A medical droid was removing the protective pad from his healing face. His eyes were uncovered, but he was beginning to perceive the face of someone standing by his bed. Gradually, the smiling image of Princess Leia came into focus. She gracefully moved toward him and gently brushed his hair out of his eyes. The bacta's growing well, he said as she looked at his healing wounds. The scar should be gone in a day or so. Does it still hurt you? Across the room, the door banged open. R2 beeped a cheerful greeting as he rolled toward Luke, and 3PO clanked noisily toward Luke's bed. Master Luke, sir, it's so good to see you fully functional again. Thanks, 3PO. R2 expresses relief as well. Luke was certainly grateful for the robot's concern, but before he could reply to either of the droids, he met with another interpreter. He met with yet another interruption. Hey, kid, Han Solo greeted him boisterously as he and Chewbacca pushed into the medical center. The Wookiee growled a friendly greeting. It looks strong enough to wrestle Gundar, Han observed. Thanks to you. Luke felt that strong and felt grateful to his friend. That's to you, Omi Jr. He gave the princess a wide, devilish grin. Well, your worship, he said mockingly, it looks like you arranged to keep me close by for a little while longer. I had nothing to do with it. Leia said, hotly annoyed at Han's vanity. General Riken thinks it's dangerous for any ships to leave the system until the generators are operational. That's a good story. Actually, it says deactivated until we activated the security shield.